Hello everyone, Algalger the SideQuest Gamer here, and it's time to take a look at the second entry in the Donkey Kong Country trilogy for the Super Nintendo, and that would be Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. The original Donkey Kong Country was such an innovative platformer back in 1994 with its visual, audio, and gameplay presentation, and because it sold very well, of course it would warrant a sequel that would attempt to improve on everything. Donkey Kong Country 2 was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo on the SNES console in 1995, 1 year after the original, and while the game is just as beloved as the original, there is some division among the fans. One side would argue that this game is the best in the trilogy and an improvement over the original, and then there are others that would say that while this game is good, it felt more of the same one compared to its predecessor. As to where I stand, you're about to find out. Now, there isn't really a lot to say about the development history of Donkey Kong Country 2 other than the first one sold well, so they had to make another in a similar style. There is some history in the game's soundtrack development though, but we'll get to that later in the review. Now, remember how much fun it was to play as Donkey Kong in the original game? Well, you don't get to play as him in this game because he was kidnapped by King K. Rool, now sporting a pirate getup and goes by the name Captain K. Rool. He leaves a note in the Gangplank Galleon for Diddy and his girlfriend Dixie to find, saying that they must surrender the Banana Horde if they were to ever see Donkey Kong ever again. I am going to make a web series about these tropes in games and how the male gender is misrepresented. So would you guys kindly give me $150,000 on Kickstarter? Now, if you're playing the Game Boy Advance port from 2004, there's an intro cutscene of the kidnapping and the group's reaction as to why they wouldn't give up the Banana Horde. Diddy says that Donkey would be disappointed in them since they worked so hard to recover it last time. So Diddy and Dixie Kong set out to rescue Donkey Kong on their most dangerous adventure yet, on Crocodile Isle, the homeland of the Kremling army. Throughout the island, you'll meet fellow Kongs Funky, who functioned like he did in the previous game, except now you have to pay him a few coins to backtrack to previous worlds. There's Wrinkly Kong, the wife of Cranky, who saves your game, also in exchange for a few banana coins. Swanky Kong, who, for a few banana coins, will allow you to earn some extra lives in a little quiz show about this game. And then there's, once again, Cranky Kong, who offers you advice once again on some of the locations of the bonus room levels, in exchange for, you guessed it, a few banana coins. Banana coins are a huge part of this game, as collecting them could be the difference of an easy time or an unforgiving time, but knowing that they're all over the levels, they're not that hard to find and collect. So the gameplay is what you would expect out of a sequel to Donkey Kong Country, except with only the option to play as Diddy or Dixie Kong, but this would allow for some new interesting level design gimmicks to complement their abilities. Like Diddy functioned as he did in the original game, where his cartwheel would allow for him to reach collectibles but jump so he wouldn't fall into the abyss if the collectibles are hovering over the abyss. And Dixie Kong can do a ponytail hover to go past long distances, which is especially useful in the Bramble levels, believe me. Also, the team mentality has been made more important in this game, where you wouldn't reach certain bonus areas unless one Kong throws the other up to that area, making it so that the different characters aren't just glorified hit points like in the first game. And remember the animal buddies from the first game that we all knew well and loved? Well, this aspect of the game returns. Rambi the Rhino, Angwar the Swordfish, and Squawks the Parrot return in this game, except that Squawks is not just some light mechanic for one level. No, Squawks appears in multiple levels and is now more useful, and is in fact a rideable and transformable character that can shoot nuts at enemies and fly around. And while Espresso the Ostrich and Winky the Frog were omitted from this game, they were replaced by the superior Squirter the Spider, who can shoot webs and use them as platforms to get to hard-to-reach areas. There's also Clabber the Seal, but you can't ride it, and it only cools the boiling water or freezes the enemy-infested water in just 2 levels. Bradley the Snake is very useful for leaping up to high places and jumping on top of enemies. And Glimmer, well, it only appears in one level, Glimmer's Galleon, as nothing more than an underwater light mechanic, but I am glad that the Animal Buddy aspect is back. And the returning animal buddies are better than ever because Rambi and Angwar now have a charge attack that they need to bust open peculiar walls that lead them to bonus rooms. I like how in some levels you can even transform into the animal buddies with 1 or 2 hit points depending if you have both Kongs or not when entering the transformation barrels. These levels can be some of the most fun in the game, well, except for Toxic Tower. The level design, I would argue, is an improvement over the original because while the original game's levels were open and linear, with some well-hidden bonus barrels encouraging exploration, the same goes for Donkey Kong Country 2, except that exploration is encouraged even more, as bonus barrels aren't the only things worth searching for, since now you can also look for DK Hero Coins, which is mainly for completionists to find, but I'll get to that aspect later. The levels all sport a pirate theme, but not entirely. There are the typical ice levels inside the galleon levels, which are basically this game's water levels. The on-deck galleon levels, the rope levels on top of the galleon, there's also the castle levels, swamp levels, lava levels, beehive levels, roller coaster levels, mine levels, forest levels, and even secret jungle levels found in the Lost World, which I'll also get to later. I really like how the mine levels, like Squawk's Shaft, as well as the bramble levels and the forest levels, as they just feel original and tell you, you know the levels from Donkey Kong Country? Well, we're going to improve on everything they did. Even the minecart levels I didn't like in the first game, the roller coaster levels more than make up for them. The only level types I didn't care for were some of the castle levels and some of the beehive levels, as the honey wall jumping mechanic can be really annoying with those zingers going back and forth, and if you get stuck in one place, the zinger will just hit you and you'll die. It's just annoying. And the castle levels like Castle Crush have enemies coming in all over the place, requiring some level memorization, and don't get me started on Toxic Tower and that rising acid. But that's not the worst level, as that would go to the Lost World's Clobber Carnage. If you hated the Snow Barrel Blast level from in the first game, this is that level, but with even more barrels, and now there are floor spikes, and it's filled with some of the most annoying enemies introduced in the game, the barrel-clad clobbers, and not just the green ones, there's also the TNT barrel ones, and the ones that take your balloons away, which act as lives. At least Animal Antics wasn't bad if you got used to the wind physics in the Bramble section, but no matter how many times I replay that game, Clobber Carnage was always that level. But out of the 40 plus levels in this game, there were only like 4 or 5 I didn't care for, and that's a pretty good track record for this game. The bonus rooms also saw improvements. Instead of just finding the bonus rooms to add to the percentage, the bonus rooms now have new objectives like defeat the enemies or collect the X amount of stars, but you would have to beat them in order to get the Crumb Coin, which you need to get in order to unlock the levels in Lost World. And you need to unlock all of those levels to beat the game's secret boss and get the true ending of the game, which is one of the most epic, most climactic endings in a video game. I dare not spoil for you, but let me tell you, it is so worth it. At least in the Super Nintendo version, the GBA port kind of ruined the ending. Also, getting the DK Hero Coins is nice to get praise from Cranky Kong, plus it's really nice to see yourself outrank the pre-rendered 3D Mario. Now let's talk about the boss battles in the game. One of the flaws of the original game was that the bosses were insultingly easy, but now that's remedied in this game as the bosses put up a pretty good fight. I especially love the fight with King Zing, Cudgel, and Captain K. Rool. In the Game Boy Advance version, there's even an exclusive boss named Kerosene who is also a pretty epic boss fight. Crow, Cleaver, and Creepy Crow were pretty good too and offered an interesting challenge, but the bosses are just as phenomenal, and I'm glad that they improved upon this aspect the way they did. The graphical style from the original Donkey Kong Country returned in this game, and whether they're better is a topic of debate. I would say that it's on par with the original, although I did notice that the below deck water levels had that background that was in a pseudo 3D style. But either way, it's some of the best graphics on the Super Nintendo, and if anything, the 3D visual style they chose for this game is debatably more atmospheric than the original, especially in the forest and swamp levels. There's just something so unsettling about those levels, like death awaits you. And the soundtrack, I have to say, if the original soundtrack was great, then this game's soundtrack is excellent. Now, subjectively speaking, none of the soundtracks measure up to Aquatic Ambience, but there are a few that are extremely close in terms of quality. My personal favorites are Forest Interlude, In a Snowbound Land, Clomp's Romp, Mining Melancholy, and everyone's favorite Sticker Brush Symphony. Forest Interlude is just so atmospheric as you're in a dark forest surrounded by some of the most vicious enemies, including ghost pirates. The soundtrack just complements that well, especially the pan flute part that encourages you to move forward. In a snowbound land, I like because it has an echoey instrumentation that actually feels like you're in an ice cave that's very vast and open. Clomp's Romp is great because it combines the sound of the ocean with the creaking of the moving ship, and then the music starts. Mining Melancholy is great because it sounds entirely like the machinery of the mine is making it in a rhythm, and even though some criticize it as just sound effects and no music, I think it adds to the immersion of the game. And what can I say about Sticker Brush Symphony that hasn't been said before? It's heavenly, it's amazing, its aquatic ambience polar opposite, as aquatic ambience conveyed a sense of isolation underwater, while Sticker Brush Symphony conveyed a sense of happiness and adventure in the sky. The soundtrack of the game was entirely composed by David Wise himself, and it really shows, as I would dare say that this is some of his best work and is the reason why he is one of the internet's most beloved video game music composers. Interesting aspects about the sound development for this game is that for the track Bayou Boogie, David Wise tried to make the Super Nintendo sound like the Roland CR78 drum machine Phil Collins used for his hit single In the Air Tonight. I'm not even kidding, the tracks kind of sound similar in terms of rhythm. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit worth mentioning, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless. Other tracks like Jib Jig and the map theme Welcome to Crocodile Isle were pretty good and setting the mood of the game. I also like the boss Bassanova because it's so fast-paced, making the bosses seem more intimidating than they already are. I especially love the final boss theme with Captain K. Rool, and as for the bonus room theme, it's still upbeat and now in the style of a game show's pit orchestra, but subjectively, I like the original game's bonus room theme a little better, but this is just speaking from personal taste and not heavy analysis at the sheet music for each soundtrack, so take it with a grain of salt. Donkey Kong Country 2 has a vast library of memorable soundtracks that even outranks Donkey Kong Country 1. Sometimes I just go on YouTube just to listen to the game's soundtrack. I don't even have to be playing the game in order to enjoy it. But now, the big question is, did Donkey Kong Country 2 age well? Well, of course it did. Like I said in my review of Donkey Kong Country 1, the pre-rendered 3D graphics looks a little pixelated and grainy if you're playing it on an HD TV, so you can either do two things. A, you can either play it on the original TV by buying it used or something, or you can buy an upscaler for your Super Nintendo, say if you do have an HD TV. I know the Wii U eShop re-releases of retro games already have the graphics upscale, but sometimes it's still a little noticeable, and you probably want to be as authentic as possible, say if you're a retro gamer who wants to play it authentically rather than play the re-releases. Although at this point in time, I recommend getting the re-releases because the Super Nintendo controllers used are probably worn out. While the fact that you may have to pay banana coins to save your progress may annoy some, it's not that bad since, like I said, they're scattered everywhere in each level. This game improves on nearly everything: clever level design, soundtrack, everything. Donkey Kong Country 2 is not only the best game in the trilogy, but one of the best games of all time in my personal opinion. There's really nothing wrong I can easily point out with this game, other than the few annoying levels like Clobber Carnage, but when you see the true ending of the game, it's just all worth it. The game is one of the Super Nintendo's best-selling games, but it didn't sell as well as the original, but still sold several million copies back then, and probably even more now thanks to digital distribution of re-releases. So overall, I would give this game a 98 out of 100. It's only $8 on the Wii U eShop, so it's a must download. It deserves more than the $8 asking price, but since it's only offering that, you must take advantage of the low price to play this game. Seriously, you have to play it. It is one of my favorite games of all time and one of my highest recommendations for video games. Thank you so much for watching. Now, since I reviewed the first two games in the trilogy, I've got one more to go, and next week's review will be Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Now, as to what I think about the most polarizing entry in this trilogy, well, you're gonna find out next week, but as always, thank you so much for watching, and remember to stay awesome.